What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Culture FC, the weekly soccer show where we discuss all culturally relevant soccer topics, lifestyle, fashion, music, politics, everything happening off the pitch, none of the stuff happening on it. My name is Alan, and I'm here joined by my two lovely co-hosts, Louis and Brendan. And this week, our episode was a little bit different than the conventional Culture FC episode, where we actually dove deeper into the three main topics of the week. The first one being La Liga announcing that they're going to be playing games here in the U.S., which is, in our minds, a pretty big announcement. We kind of dove deep into what that meant for soccer culture here in the U.S., what it meant for global soccer, and how that could potentially impact how the game is played for the remainder of time. The second topic we covered was Austin finally accepting a proposed plan for Columbus Crew Stadium in the city of Austin. We dove deep into kind of what that meant for a whole host of people. The people of Austin, the city of Austin, the people of Columbus, the Columbus Crew as a club, and got deep into what that meant for culture there, and if we think that's a good idea, and potentially some solutions to fix this whole mess that's happening with the Columbus Crew. The third and final news topic we covered was Arsenal Fan TV and how they were potentially forced into changing their branding names from Arsenal Fan TV to AFTV. We kind of dive deep into that and what that means for Arsenal Fan TV going forward. And finally, the kind of main topic that we discussed today was jersey numbers, what they mean to the sport of soccer, how jersey numbers are different for the sport of soccer comparatively to traditional numbering for American sports. Scheme today was a little bit different than general episodes, but we really enjoyed getting into it, and that's about it. As always, if you like the episode, please drop us that 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. If you're watching us versus listening to us on YouTube, please leave us that thumbs up, subscribe to us, let us know that you love us. Leaving the 5-star review on your podcast app really helps us rank and helps us kind of grow as a network, so we'd really appreciate that. You can also find us on Instagram at culturef.c. A lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff, videos, quotes. We just like to have fun with that account, so please go follow us there. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave us a message, comment on the videos. If you're watching to us on the videos, send us an email, DM us, however it is that you can find us, reach out to us. We love hearing your feedback. We love getting more information from soccer culture out there, so please do not hesitate to do that. And that is about it for me today. Sit back, relax, and let's get right into the episode. All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. To any new listener, this is the segment at the beginning of the show where we cover three culturally relevant soccer topics. We kind of usually just touch upon them. Today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to take a deeper dive into these topics because we think they're super important, super relevant to the soccer world, soccer culture here in the U.S. and globally. So let's jump right in. First topic today, La Liga actually announced a 15-year partnership with a multimedia organization, Relevant, which actually sets up the ICC, the International Champions Cup. If you haven't listened to our podcast on that, a few episodes ago, go back and listen to that so you can find out what that is. But signed a 15-year contract with them to actually have real, live La Liga games played here in the U.S. And this contract is going to bring not just Barca and Real Madrid, but it's going to bring kind of a whole mix of La Liga teams here into the U.S. to play games that actually matter to the La Liga season. Similar to what the NFL is doing now with England and bringing kind of one or two games over to England and having people in England enjoy NFL games. La Liga is going to be doing that here in the U.S. So at kind of a superficial level, wanted to get your ideas on this. Like, what was your first reaction to this? Do you think it's cool, not cool? And then we can kind of dive deeper from there.
So my initial reaction to this is skeptical at best. I don't know how I'm feeling about, I understand the La Liga is a super popular league in the world, and this is basically just their play to become the most popular league in the world, essentially, because of how many people in the U.S. follow and spend their money on soccer. But I will say on the internet, people are livid. There are people on Twitter calling this the end of soccer as we know it, and kind of overreacting just a little bit, if you were to ask me. But some people view this as like the absolute worst thing that could have happened. And while I don't think it's to that extent, I'm like I said, I'm very skeptical about this because while I think that the general public would love to see Real Madrid once a year or Barcelona once a year, the thing is they're gonna have to kind of like rotate teams, right? Like you can't keep making the same teams travel over here. And so my other question is, if you're gonna have a game in, let's say, whatever, in Chicago of like Eibar versus what's another Spanish team?
Real Betis.
Well, Betis is getting good this year, so let's change it to.
They don't have a global fan base.
Let's pretend Betis from 3 years ago when they weren't as good, right? Let's pretend, So let's say those two teams are going to play in like Chicago. Who's going to go watch? Yeah. Because, okay, Barcelona can play whoever. It doesn't really matter, and people are going to go watch, of course. But at the same time, like when you get these two random teams to come over here, is anyone really going to go to the stadium to watch this?
Yeah.
Unless it's marketed well.
Yeah. We'll see. B, what's your initial kind of thinking on it?
The only thing I'm skeptical of is like it's just the travel time of it all. I feel like it's just not like the worst travel time, but like I feel like it would take a lot of training, or not training, but a lot of like freaking sorry about that. What was I saying?
A lot of
travel time, and just like the preparation it would take to get to the games and everything like that. Like I don't know. I don't find that a lot of the teams would enjoy it. Yeah. I mean, unless they want to come to the U.S. But what is it? How long's the contract? 15 years?
15 years, yeah.
15 years of La Liga teams? Like that's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
That's
a super commitment.
And it's like at least one game a year per year for the next 15 years. Yeah. And so my question to you, based off of what you just said, do you think that teams are going to view this as an exhibition game? Because even though it's going to be part of the La Liga schedule, in other words, it's going to be one of the 38 games that each team has to play, but the timing of this could be weird. Is it going to be at the end of the season? Is it going to be at the beginning of the season? How is it going to match up with the MLS calendar and or FIFA calendar? And also, because if it's at the end of the La Liga season and these teams already kind of know their fate, is this just a glorified friendly? Yeah. Right? Because that's
and
what
to jump on that, Louis, the Spanish Players Union was actually super opposed to this happening. They did not want this to happen. They even were cited saying like players are being used as currency for these third parties to benefit, because players aren't going to be benefiting at all. No. It's going to be La Liga and the relevant media group that are going to be benefiting. So players are totally against it. La Liga has been pretty vocal at saying they wanted to do this, so they've been it's been out there, but the players union there has been totally against it. So that's jumping on Louis' point of just like at what point does this become something that's going to work? Because players are already not going to be behind it. If they're not behind it, are they going to actually be putting on an enjoyable game for people to watch?
Yeah, I feel it's like a La Liga show and tell kind of. It's like, hey, United States, like these are players from our side of the woods. Like, come watch us play here, and then we're gonna just go back. But hey, it's not an exhibition game. Yeah. It really counts.
It does count.
Like that would, I don't know. I don't think the United States would really understand that it would be like a real season game, because all the games that we do see for the most part are all exhibition games, or part of like tournaments that we don't really fully grasp.
But I think that does come down to the marketing of it, right? Like if they market it well, then of course people are going to understand that it's a real game. Mm-hmm. But even if people understand it's a real game, I don't think the players are going to be on board. No. Because like I said, it really depends on timing, right? Imagine because at no point in the season do I think this even makes sense. If it's at the beginning of the La Liga season, in other words, so today is the 17th of August. The La Liga season actually starts, I think, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Imagine if, I think they said as early as this year they could get a game in the States. So let's pretend next year, if it's at the beginning of their season, it's still technically what we would consider like almost preseason. Like we just saw preseason games a week ago. So all of a sudden, let's say they use it as the kickoff of their season, which I would find very silly. The players aren't at full fitness yet. They're still going to treat it as a friendly. If it's at the middle of the season, that's just the biggest distraction you could possibly imagine. You have these players who have been doing this for 3 or 4 months. They are in the groove of things. They're literally finally hitting that stride as a player that you always read about, that they need to get into a groove. And you're going to throw that completely out of whack, add an extra week of travel on both ends of this game just for you to break the season apart, just for some extra cash and marketing.
Yeah.
Or if you do it at the end of the season where the fate's already decided for each team whether or not you're going to be relegated or you're going to be promoted or you're going to go to the Champions League spot or whatever it is, it doesn't matter anymore. So, in my opinion, at no point during the La Liga season does this game make any sense to me.
So, I want to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here because I agree with some points, but I also kind of want to stir the pot a little bit. We always talk about soccer being the global game. This is now becoming a global game, right? As much as the initial idea of it may not be that interesting, not only that, we actually a few episodes ago in the International Champions Cup, we're talking about how do we cultivate culture for the sport here, and one of the solutions was to bring games where things actually mattered. So I wanted to get your opinion now, guys, with that in mind. If that changes your opinion at all, because this has been a proposed solution that we have put on the table to bring games here where things actually matter, to get points that matter, competition that matters, as opposed to these extra big games. Does that change your idea on it? Because although, yes, it is a bit of a marketing play, but at the end of the day, there are points on the table that are going to have to be played for. And whether the games come at a bad times for the team doesn't really matter, right? Because if they're playing for a Champions League spot and they need to win that last game or they need to win that second to last game to get into that Champions League spot or not be relegated, is that not good for business? Is that not good for the sport here in the U.S.?
I don't like the fact that you just brought back whatever you were saying the other day.
I'm sorry for holding you accountable.
No, because my past self is not my present self. Don't believe anything my past self has said.
Wait, no, there are 40 episodes of podcast of us talking. Please pay attention to what we said. I think that while, yes, that is 100% what we put out as a solution, in my mind, I thought it made more sense in terms of teams from different leagues playing each other. But I guess that doesn't change the fact that we said it. It doesn't change that is a true, meaningful thing. But in my opinion, I think the globalization of the game would be amazing if there was just a. In other words, to answer your question, the globalization of the game is super important, and I think it's great that people in the U.S. are going to be able to experience this. But my question is, wouldn't it have been a lot easier and maybe a little bit more less controversial, I guess, to just find a very good partner in the U.S. to have La Liga games available to the mass public as
You're
a form of
broadcasting wise? What are you saying, partner? Sorry, I don't.
So basically, we're talking about how this is essentially the globalization of the game, correct? Mm-hmm. Bringing the La Liga teams to play a game in the United States. Mm-hmm. Now, wouldn't it have made more sense to an extent to globalize the game for La Liga to find a really good TV partner to have all of these games, every game available on TV, as opposed to just this one game that, because it's being played in the U.S., will be available to Americans? Because at the end of the day, I think, if the end goal was to make La Liga a more globalized worldwide league, I think there's better ways of going about it than having a game in the United States. For example, sure, I know that there's someone, I don't know which company has the La Liga rights. I believe it's still BN.
BN, yeah.
BN is not widely available in the United States, right? And so if La Liga had potentially come together with, not ESPN because they don't show sports ever, so I don't know, Fox Soccer or someone big.
They show a lot of NASCAR, dude. Don't say that.
And also Cornhole Championship the other day, and I was like, okay, ESPN, all right, sounds good. But if they had just found a partner to have a bigger TV deal, wouldn't that have the same effect and not piss off everybody by bringing players over here? But then again, at the same time, having the game in the United States is going to force people to give a crap, which I think is the big point. I was going to
interject a bit there, and it's, again, something we always say is firsthand experience. right? We always say you want to experience match culture, match this and that. You go to the game, experience it firsthand. We're bringing these European teams in here to experience what European football is. Yes, the TV deal, obviously, look at what it's done for the Premier League. But again, it's that thing of like, if you don't feel it, you don't know it.
Definitely true.
So yeah, I just think, yes, the initial kind of reaction to it, and it's what I think we should expect, because from a logistical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. No other league in the world really does this, but to kind of, it's not something that La Liga hasn't done. I mean, La Liga played their Spanish Super Cup this year, like what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago? They played it in Morocco, so it wasn't even played in Spain. So
they're really trying to put their
they're
league
progressing,
out there.
and if we're talking about the globalization of the sport, honestly, out of all of the things that are being introduced into the sport of soccer that kind of are making it this kind of more of a money grab, this is one of my more favorite ones.
Okay.
Because, yes, for the players, it doesn't really make sense. But as a fan, if they ever played an El Clasico here, Madrid, Barcelona, imagine what that one game would have in terms of impact culturally in the United States. Because that would be, say they had that Clasico in Miami, that one game would be like the Real Madrid Manchester United exhibition game where they filled out was it Michigan Stadium? They filled out Michigan Stadium with almost 100,000 people, or over 100,000 people, but with actual points on the table. People would look into that and be like, "What the hell are these people doing going to this game?"
Right.
And maybe that introduces new eyeballs onto the sport.
So, but my thing is, do you think La Liga would ever have the Clasico here out of all the games?
Because honestly, if I were going to say that they wanted to introduce a game into the U.S.,
they should do that
maybe
one.
El Clasico, but I don't want to put money on it, but I would say that Barcelona, Real Madrid, or Atletico Madrid will be involved in one of the early matches to introduce this new contract into the U.S.
Because the way I see it is, if you're going to take away the two biggest games that you have a year and put one of them outside of your country in a stadium that will not fit as many people as you can fit in Spain, you're going to have to hike those prices way up to make up for that difference, which we all know that's going to happen.
We'll pay.
That won't be a problem.
It will not be a problem, but it's also like...
But will it be that far out of reach? They just played a cup match outside of Spain.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I think that La Liga, this is something that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to have to happen. But now I want to turn this on its head from... Let's not look at it from an American fan standpoint. If you're a Spanish citizen or someone who lives in Spain and you support the shit out of your team, how do you feel about this? Like, imagine people give Real Madrid and Barcelona supporters a lot of flack because they're like very commercialized. It's more of like they say that there's less atmosphere in those stadiums when it's like a regular game because there's just a lot of tourists or whatever. Same thing that happens at Manchester United and any other big club. But let's say you're the most fervent, diehard Real Madrid, like you bleed the colors of Real Madrid. That is the thing you love the most, right? And all of a sudden you've been waiting for El Clasico in Madrid, and they go, "Oh no, this year we're not having it here. We're gonna have it in Los Angeles." And you're like, "The fuck? I don't live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I live in Spain. How am I the person? I'm a season ticket holder. I go to the organized supporters groups. I do all this. Now I have to fly to Los Angeles."
Yeah.
Just to catch a game that has been a staple in my life every single year for the past whatever.
Yeah.
How does that person feel?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be pissed, bro. That really ticked me off. But at the same time, if I was a diehard supporter,
Yeah.
I've seen people like some of these away matches like are pretty far away, but I mean at the same time not Los Angeles far away.
Not a 9-hour flight, another 3-hour car ride, things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yes, no, I agree that as a diehard fan, and if I was looking forward to an El Clasico at home, Madrid, yes, that would bother me if it's no longer being played there. But like, think of it would just be an away game, right, for both teams.
Okay.
Whereas like if you were going to play that, if you're Barcelona and you're going to play an away game at Madrid, now you're playing in the U.S., doesn't really matter. I mean, as
just
a fan,
one game,
it's just
I
one
guess.
game.
Yeah.
But probably if you weren't going to travel, you were going to watch it on TV either way. Where it starts to impact is, okay, now the timing is different. I might have to watch this game at really late, really early, whatever it may be. But that's an inconvenience that I think can be overcome as long as it's not like game being played at 2 a.m., right? Local time to Spain. So yes, although I think that local fans do get impacted. I mean, they might lose out on that one important game, but at the end of the day, for the away team, it's just another away game in terms of fan perspective. So I don't know that it would be that detrimental to me as a diehard fan. I'm trying to think now if that were Manchester United's case, and they were playing some game randomly, I'd feel bad for the players because I don't want them to perform poorly if they are having to travel this long. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if it fits in my schedule, I'm probably going to watch it, right? So I'm not going to be too down on that.
Quick aside to the availability of La Liga games in the United States. As a United States fan, it's like beIN Sports, and that's pretty much it, right?
Right.
And beIN Sports isn't really widely available.
No, you have to get a special package.
So my question is, with the Premier League being on NBC Sports, I think that having the La Liga games is a little bit more far-fetched than if we were to bring the Premier League into the United States.
So
really, I'm against La Liga doing what they're doing, but me, past self, agree with the fact that if we had more games from the Premier League that is more of
because they're already
involved.
Broadcast.
They're already broadcast in the United States. Why not bring the broadcasted games already in?
I see. So what you're saying is if La Liga had a TV deal similar to what the Premier League has, where it's more widely available, it wouldn't be as far-fetched as it is now because of that gap.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nail on head.
So on that, I actually kind of agree with that, actually. I think that if these games were being transmitted more...
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking of it just now.
No, I think that's a major point because the only games that I think are like... Actually, not even the Clásicos have been widely available. They're all on beIN. Like, you can't...
Yeah, you can't watch it, Clásico, unless you're streaming.
And that's the thing. Well, yeah.
Legally
is what we're speaking. I mean, like... I think that would have been something that would have been good to do before introducing this because...
I mean, they have 15 years now, though.
That's fair. That's true. But at the same time, it's like...
still, yeah.
Aside from the top 3 teams or top 4 teams... Actually, I'm going to take this to the common American supporter. Aside from Real Madrid and Barcelona, who does the common American know play in La Liga? You know what I mean? Like, we may know them because we're deep into soccer.
I would say that I'm no soccer a decent amount, and I could name like 6 teams in La Liga, right? Like that were promoted, relegated. I have no idea who was promoted, relegated. I know the top 4 teams: Sevilla, Valencia, Atletico Madrid, Barca, Real Madrid, 5, and then I could name you the random ones that like I scroll through in FIFA.
Yeah, exactly. And so, whereas today, if you were to ask someone who likes soccer about the Premier League, they could probably name you all 20 teams that are in the Prem this year, you know? But I think that's to your point is the availability of that. On that point, this was something that this whole news topic actually took me by surprise because what people have been talking about for the Prem and in the UK, because of how readily available it has been in the United States, they've actually been talking about the Prem doing what La Liga has announced that they are doing now. Yeah. For about a couple years, I've seen these things, a couple of suggestions floating on the internet, and a lot of journalists have been writing it as well, where if the Premier League if the FA got rid of, like, say, the Community Shield and kind of played a 39th game to the Premier League, if they could do it overseas, say in the U.S., it would actually make more sense than the ICC friendlies, right? Yeah. And so with La Liga kind of jumping the gun and beating them to that, do you think that the Prem now can never do that because La Liga is already doing it? Or would it just become this kind of weird thing where all of these leagues come and play?
If it does become successful, it's one of those things like, all right, we're jumping in that market, right? The U.S. is big enough to be able to host that many international teams. We've seen it already. So I don't think it'd be any problem. I think it would make it easier for them to make the case to do it if they saw that La Liga was having success with it. Be like, hey, this league's making a shit ton of money off of this, so why don't we jump on this bandwagon? Easily. They'd get it. And they proposed something like that back in 2008. It wasn't even that drastic. They wanted to play a Premier League game in Wales, and it was shut down completely. Like, it was something like, no, this is not going to happen. The FA chief had to come out and say, okay, we're going to take a step back and talk about this at a time when it makes more sense. If that time is now, and if they want to explore now in the U.S., we're going to see, because now with this deal, that's a game changer, I think, in terms of international globalization of a league. So it'll be cool to see, but I think that if La Liga does succeed, it'll just make it that much easier for the FA chief or anyone on board with that type of change for the Premier League to make a case for themselves and say, hey, we got to do this.
Because the way I see it now is that La Liga is forcing their way into this conversation in the United States, but at the same time, it's like that puts them a step above, right? Yeah. And so now the Prem has to kind of look at it and go, man, we had this market essentially cornered in the United States. We were the only major league that had widespread new TV coverage and all of that. How do we one-up La Liga? Yeah. It might just be a situation. Let's follow suit.
It's super important for us to mention, too, that this is potentially a super historic moment in football, right? I think there's a lot of outrage right now, but this could potentially be – this is – completely different step in any type of change we've ever seen in the sport, right? There's no, this is this, we keep saying this word globalization, but this is the ultimate globalization of a sport, is now when you're having a league that originated in a country, played years and years and years in a country, now expands outside of that country into other nations.
While playing league matches.
If it works, becomes probably one of the most revolutionary steps in modern football.
So,
good point.
So, does this, to kind of wrap it up, I think that's a major point, and it's super important because it also becomes a super almost diplomatic marketing kind of ploy, because in the future now, what's stopping a league, let's say, like, even on a smaller scale, like the Belgian First Division? What if they decide, oh, you know what? We want to expand and get more fans. Let's go play a game in France.
Right.
You know.
Well, think about how that changes.
It can change the landscape.
It opens the door for sure.
But hopefully, people don't take it to the extreme where all of a sudden your league starts to lose its essence of being its
right. And that's what
league.
I'm saying. Like, make sure that if this is successful, I think will be the biggest change that's ever happened in modern football.
For sure. And I think that as long as they don't take it too far the other way, it could be amazing to watch. But to wrap up this news topic, because I know we could probably go on about this for a while.
This could have been its own segment.
Could have been its own episode. But last kind of bit, do we think this is good for growing the sport in the United States? Because a lot of people would be like, well, the MLS is already struggling to get viewers, and, well, not necessarily struggling to get viewers, because every single week it's been kind of growing, but it's almost like the MLS has been around for so long, and they aren't that top-level league quite yet. Is this going to impact the growth of domestic soccer in the United States and Canada, or is this going to like hurt it, you know? What do we think?
For me, it's exposure. The more you're exposed to something, the more you're going to have an opinion on it and or like it or dislike it. Bringing in more soccer into the country, I don't think will hurt its image. I think it'll just bring more soccer. You'll see soccer every street corner, every billboard, every this, every that, every TV commercial that you see, every ad on YouTube. If that's bad, I don't know. But from a very basic view of it, I think that it would be good. You see soccer everywhere. Like, if I don't know soccer, I'm like, well, what the hell, man? You know, when you just see something way too many times, you're like, all right, I have to look into what this is. Like, what the hell is this? From a very basic view, don't think that's bad. I think that that'll be good for growing soccer culture. And if Americans just don't eat it up, then the market just doesn't like it, whatever. But I think in terms of bringing the sport of football here to the U.S., I think it's a pretty decent ploy.
You being a devil's advocate really has brung me full circle. You know, it's exposure. It's exposure, and it's something, I mean, even just you saying those things, like billboards everywhere, like I hadn't even thought of that at all. And it's just like playing in my head. It's like, wow, that'd be wicked cool to see this. Because for us in the United States, it's not really, like, it's a popular sport, but like around the world, like it's front and center. Yeah. Like wherever you go, like there's no baseball diamonds around. There's soccer fields and this and that. And hopefully we can start to see like a more globalized shift towards the United States becoming a more soccer-centric place to be. But it also introduces different kinds of playing of soccer.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it's not that United States MLS style of playing. It's like you get to see these powerhouse teams, and some teams we may not even know.
Absolutely. No, and to close out the topic, then we're done. I want to play back a scenario Louis played for us in the ICC episode, and it was imagine we had a kind of festival for soccer. Say these games become they're coming here. We have an Atletico Madrid fan. He doesn't have that many people that really follow sport, but he's like, hey guys, come watch the sport with me. Brings a handful of friends. They come and watch the game. They get a little bit of grasp of this culture. It's introducing the sport, whether fans like it or not. I think it'll help in the long run for culture here.
And the reason I brought up that last thing I said was like, because we talk a lot about how like MLS has like that little brother mentality. My whole thing was like, do we think this is going to continue to push that narrative of the MLS being this lower league, or is it going to help it overall? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think because the MLS won't be involved at all, it'll keep them separate. I think it'll just be good for the growth of soccer culture here in the U.S., and I don't think the MLS will actually be that negatively impacted, because it would be comparing two things that here aren't being forced into the same landscape. The
same way that it was in like the ICC or anytime there's a friendly.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that actually. Like if a game were to be hosted at the Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, I could see like Atlanta United helping market the game, which would end up being like, okay, maybe you live in Georgia and you don't really care for the MLS, but you're like, oh, sweet, let's go to the Benz, watch Barcelona play, I don't know, Eibar or Zaragoza or whatever. But they market it well. Maybe the following week after that, they're like, damn, that was really fun to go to a game at the Benz for soccer. What if I go to an LA United game? I could kind of see it helping, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think we'll have to see how it goes. We have 15 years to judge, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that one. But moving along to...
That's topic number one.
That was news topic number one, friends. And if you're still with us, thank you.
Yeah.
But news topic number two... It's actually two different news items that are essentially connected. So we mentioned, I believe last week of the week, was it last week? About the Austin City Council voting on the Columbus Crew Stadium?
Yep.
Or I'm sorry. So we mentioned last week how the city of Austin, Texas was voting on the proposed stadium kind of whether or not they were going to allow a stadium to be built in Austin for the purpose of soccer, right? Because as many people know, the Columbus Crew, team of the MLS, are on the verge of being moved from Columbus to Austin, Texas, because their owner really doesn't want to keep them in Columbus. And some people are loving the fact that Columbus might be moving to Austin because people feel like Austin needs to have a team. And some people are saying that Columbus is one of the original MLS teams, we can't move them. But basically, the city council voted and approved the stadium site for a potential future MLS team, but at the same time, news has come out that Mark Wahlberg, famous Bostonian, Marky Mark from Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, he is interested in buying the Columbus Crew, as I guess he's been doing a lot of business in Central Ohio. Don't know why. It's just a thing that's happening. You'd think that maybe Mark Wahlberg would want to do something in his hometown. No one knows. Whatever. There's a chance he wants to buy the Columbus Crew. So these are two very different topics, but they are very interconnected because there has been this giant divide amongst people for the past year about their feelings on Columbus, and we've kind of touched upon it in a couple episodes, but at face value, I kind of want to talk to you guys about what do we think about both of these things.
Austin approving the plan is great for the city of Austin if the club were to move there. I think Austin would be a great city for a soccer team.
Because they sorry to interject, but they almost fit that model of like Portland. Like we talked about what made Portland so awesome was their anti popular culture almost. They're very hipsterish.
Think of Austin just in terms of Texas. It's completely different from anything else you'll see in Texas.
Right.
So
people talk about how
have y'all been to Austin?
No, but I've heard.
Oh, I've
heard I've had family who's spent time there, and like my
it's very different from Texas.
It's like a liberal playground.
Oh, I thought it was just Texas.
No, dude,
Austin is like
Austin is crazy.
Really? It's like this. I want to say it's one of like this. It's one or two like top tech cities in the country. Like Facebook, Oracle, huge companies are all there. Like that's a hub.
It's like if you could remove, like Austin would fit in with California.
Okay.
With how they are. You know what I mean? but it's like, South by Southwest is there every year. It's like massive. Like it's that city that the MLS would fit perfectly into.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yes.
Painted a good picture.
Yeah. So yes, I think for the city of Austin that would be awesome. For Columbus and the fans there, and we've actually did a whole episode talking about that whole situation. I think it would be obviously detrimental, but personally, I don't like the way that the fans there are handling the situation by boycotting
acting like 12-year-olds.
That's one way to put it. Not going to the matches,
offense.
not supporting the fans just because they are boycotting the manager. Although it's not unheard of, it happens worldwide. I just personally don't think it's the best way to handle it. I don't think it helps their case. For the city of Columbus, it's bad. Mark Wahlberg buying it, super cool. I actually really love the idea of kind of celebrity figures investing in the sport. I think that it's, again, another proposed solution. We should make a board of ourselves that just proposes solutions to fixing soccer culture in the U.S. because I think we're rather decent at it.
But
we've talked about having influential figures, rappers showing up to Atlanta United games. How important that is for soccer and soccer culture. Having, again, another celebrity influential figure investing and showing interest in a sport, I think is really cool for the sport. A la Will Ferrell and LAFC.
And one has to wonder, did Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg talk during, when they filmed?
Right, because they're actually pretty close.
Well, they filmed that movie that they actually filmed here in Framingham, the Daddy's
Home.
Daddy's Home. They filmed that literally in our hometown.
Right. So maybe Mark has some type of insight on it. But yeah, I think that from that perspective, it would be really cool to see another kind of celebrity figure involved in the sport.
All right. So now learning about Austin, I think Austin compared to Ohio. I mean, I've never been to. I have been through Ohio.
I don't offend Ohio, but I've heard Ohio is the Florida of the Midwest.
Really?
I don't know. Just
No.
rumors I've been stumbling upon.
I went to a great antique market. It was huge in Ohio. Just driving through it, didn't stop anywhere else. But I think having
how's the antique scene in Ohio?
it was when I went, it was huge. It was like one of the bigger ones. It was advertised for a few miles on the I-90.
Nice.
But got a couple things. It was
Brendan is our
relatively cheap.
resident antiquer as well. He's the master of all things.
Hey, if anyone's still listening right now, I got those FA card, 1990, 1991. Send me your information. I'll send you a pack for free.
Yeah, but anyways.
All right. Austin, approving it. And where it is, I think, like you said, it's a perfect place for MLS to fit in. I think at this point, the fan base of Ohio right now is really digging themselves their own grave.
Yeah.
Not just Ohio, it's Columbus.
Columbus.
Let's be honest, because Cincinnati's also joining the MLS in 2 years, and they have a fervent fan base.
Okay, so yeah, even more so. If you know that another team is going to be moving in, wouldn't you want to still, despite your disdain for your manager right now?
Not management.
Ownership, what have you.
We don't want to confuse people because manager could be the head coach.
That's true. But I think they would have a better chance of saving whatever they want to save, like by showing up to the games and showing that there's a fan base that wants it here. But at the end of the day, I mean, management is management, and if they see a better opportunity for more money and to bring soccer where they believe it's going to have more chance of becoming more popular, I think.
Yeah,
you got to kind of side with that, but I feel bad. I feel for the fans.
Yeah.
I'm not negating their pain, but
it's not an easy situation.
No.
We're saying that we're not there. We have no idea, but it would be nice to see the fans there because I think they have a super rich history of fanmanship, if I could say that, and I think that it would be better for their cause if they were there, like Brendan's saying, just showing support, showing that regardless of whether this guy wants to remove them from there or not, they're going to be there backing their club. But again, it's on them to make that decision, and by no means am I the deciding factor on that.
Yeah.
And then on Will Ferrell, Will Ferrell, Will Ferrell, I love the guy, but Mark, dude, again, I think that's a fun idea. Yeah. I think you see a celebrity invest money into any sport at all, it's gonna pique some interest. Even among the say they have fervent fans already as a celebrity. It's like, oh, this guy just wants to buy a soccer team. Well, I might as well look into this.
And he's a smart business owner. He already owns,
Wahlbergers.
With his brother and stuff. And he has a lot of different business investments. I think he owns a couple of dealerships too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I think that him
diversifying his portfolio.
Yeah, but also him playing a role in just ownership. I think that he understands that position, and he would understand kind of how to deal with the consumer in this case, which would be the fans. It would be good.
Yeah, I mean, we should do an episode on Columbus, A, and B, whether or not we think they should be removed or not. I don't want to really dive into that right now just because it would be a lot to talk about. But, one thing I will say is that the owner of the Crew originally said when he bought the Crew in 2013 that he would not be relocating them. That was like one of the biggest things that he promised all the supporters. And, of course, he's gone back on that, and we did touch upon this a little bit. But essentially, I think that I do think Austin kind of would fit really well into the MLS landscape. It would, bring a really fun atmosphere, I think, to the MLS. It'd be really interesting to see how they do it. But at the same time, if Mark Wahlberg is involved with the team, I think you guys are right. Having him as a influencer would really bring that attention back to the Crew, because it feels like they're missing some identity right now. And we kind of make light of the situation of how the fans aren't really going. Like, I'm sure there are a big, fervent group of supporters going to every game in Columbus and trying to save the Crew, especially because we talked about how they had the stadium plans for Columbus drawn out the past 2 weeks, and there's been a big push to save the Crew. I think that if they can actually get something on paper where Mark Wahlberg is involved and showing interest and things of that nature, it could help. But kind of one last question to you guys is, the MLS is expanding, right? And they've been talking about how they want to get to 28/30 teams in the future. What's stopping them from just kind of like looking at the situation going, okay, we know there's people in Columbus who want this team here based on all the fans, based on celebrities kind of coming out and saying they want to be a part of this team. And we see that there's some interest in Austin. What's stopping them from just kind of being like, you know what? If the owner of the Crew wants to make a sale of the Crew can stay in Columbus, but we'll give him a franchise in Austin.
Yeah.
Like, what's stopping the MLS from doing that?
Yeah.
Clearly, that's a very loaded question, and there's a lot of information that needs to go into that, but I don't understand why not. Like, why, if we are looking to get to 30 teams, and people in Austin want soccer, and people in Columbus want soccer, both markets are showing that they want it. Yeah. Why not give them to both?
Yeah. Simple answer, I don't think there's anything stopping them. I was probably just finding someone that wants to buy it, which maybe Mark will buy it, and then whoever owns Columbus now can take it over.
His name is Anthony Precourt or something?
Anthony Precourt can go take it to Austin. Yeah, I mean, again, our board of solutions seems to be working at full force today. But yeah, I think that's a pretty genuine solution to what seems to be the issue. Obviously, there's a lot more behind it. It's making it seem like it is just a piece of cake to get this all done. But yes, from a very simplistic, average guy type of solution, I think that works.
Yeah, face value of that is it seems like
it would be the
easy fix.
So what we're saying is that's the best solution.
That's the best solution.
And awesome.
Episode done. We
solved
American soccer.
Just make more teams.
Culture FC, solving America's soccer problems one step at a time.
But okay, I think that wraps up that topic as well.
And
we can move on.
Number 3. We've talked about them before a little bit.
Yep.
But Arsenal Fan TV recently forced to rebrand their name.
Yeah.
Because Arsenal does not want to be associated with them due to the fact that they often criticize the club and almost bring a negative image for the club. So they haven't really, nothing official has really come out per se, but Arsenal Fan TV have recently changed their name to AFTV.
AFTV.
Just wanted to get your guys' perspective on it because it's something that we use social media to try to bring culturally relevant topics to soccer. They try to bring the culture of Arsenal fans to the masses, and it seems like they are relatively popular. But I remember what's his name came out. Bellerin came out. Yeah, we talked about him coming out against them and saying just like
saying that
calling them bullies essentially.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, wouldn't you? I feel like them having such criticism for a club. I
Yeah.
mean, there's free speech involved, but at the same time, like,
Well, not necessarily. We're not in the United States.
no, that's
here.
true.
If this were
To an extent, though.
I will say, if this were in the U.S., this would not fly. I think that, forcing someone to kind of change their name, I guess we can get into legality of things of that nature. But at the same time, it's also like, if this were the U.S., they could make the claim that, under free speech law in the United States, we could, like, you would be able to do this no problem. But it seems like Arsenal and Arsenal Fan TV kind of came to an agreement almost, because there was no legal action taken, I don't believe yet,
Yeah.
is what one of the articles I saw said. Essentially, they kind of asked them, like, hey, could you maybe not call yourselves Arsenal Fan TV? Like, maybe just call yourself something different. But if it were me, I'd be a little pissed, because, like we said this before, a soccer club isn't just the ownership and the people who play the game. It's also all of the fans. So when you have all of these Arsenal fans who take ownership of this club, inherently, where they're like, this is my club, I love Arsenal, Arsenal is for me, then for them having to change the name of their channel, which is all they're doing is living life as Arsenal fans and kind of talking about it on a channel, it would actually, if it were me, I'd be upset, like super upset. I'd be like, this is my way of life, this is my club, why can't I be called this when this is like what it is for me in my life, That's my stance. I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I think I'd be pretty upset as well. I think that I understand where Arsenal's trying to where they're coming from, because there is so much negative connotation behind Arsenal Fan TV. We've discussed this lightly, but Arsenal Fan TV is popular not because of positive fan reaction. They are popular because of negative fan reaction and kind of outlandish statements, outlandish comments that actually end up hurting Arsenal's image as a whole. Mm-hmm. So I totally understand from Arsenal's perspective, from the club's perspective, why they wouldn't want to be associated with this at all. Because, I mean, Arsenal Fan TV makes it seem like, yes, they may be run by fans, but at a very superficial level, someone that may not be super involved with Arsenal Fan TV may think that this is an association that Arsenal promotes and or is heavily involved in, which that is 100% not the case. So I understand from Arsenal's perspective why they would not want that to be what it is, because we only ever see or hear Arsenal Fan TV when it is a bad loss to a low league team, a Brighton, something that, and we get these kind of really crazy, really passionate, really fervent fan reactions, which end up most of the time lambasting the club, lambasting the players, criticizing what would be Arsenal Football Club. So I totally get it from their perspective. But yes, from a fan, if that's how I feel and that's what it is, and Arsenal Fan TV happens to be the canvas where I express this, I'd be pretty pissed if all of a sudden now the club is kind of kicking me out of that situation.
I will say, I mean, all things considered, they didn't make them change their name to, like, weloveponies.com.
Yeah.
They changed it to AFTV, which, no one's going to confuse that for being associated with Arsenal, I guess. But those of you in the know may look at it and be like, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So one aspect of this I didn't understand was they are the #1 fan channel on YouTube with over 820 subscribers, 820,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So they're almost at 1 million subscribers, which is insane in itself.
For a fan channel.
Despite negative, however they get their content is one way, but having 820,000 subscribers and being forced to change your name is...
I do think that causes a bigger rift between club and this channel.
Oh, yeah. It's only going to be more... I feel like they'll get more subscribers from it.
Right. This channel serves a purpose for a lot of people, whether it's the people that go on it and speak their mind, or it's people that go on it to kind of just have their opinions confirmed about the club. So does this create more of a rift? Arsenal Fan TV has been behind a lot of their figures have been behind anti-Arsene Wenger's protests. A lot of things that happen surrounding Arsenal kind of have some way of touching Arsenal Fan TV or AFTV now. So I don't think that the relationship there is good. I would think that this doesn't make it any better.
No, definitely not. But, I think it's just a matter of coexisting now.
Yeah.
I think that Arsenal look at it now at this point. I think the reason this even came about was that Arsenal probably looked at this channel and were like, man, we got to do something.
Yeah.
They're too popular for us to just kind of keep pretend like they don't exist. Clearly, it's become a big enough issue where they had to go out and be like, hey, guys, can you not call yourselves Arsenal Fan TV? And they're like, okay, because we want to coexist with you, we'll rebrand to AFTV. Like I said, there's nothing legal that came out of this. It was just kind of more of like a internal discussion amongst both parties, and they kind of came to an agreement, I'm assuming. So, yeah, I think that I wouldn't be happy necessarily, but at the same time, it's not a major shift. Then, it could have been a lot worse. They could have been like, they didn't send him a cease and desist letter. They was just kind of like, please just change your name a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Listeners, viewers, let us know what you think. Do you think that this is just, overblown, or is it something that would really irk you as an Arsenal fan to hear? We'd love to hear your feedback.
Absolutely.
I, as a fan, can't really. I can understand that.
As a fan of soccer in general.
I can understand when your team isn't doing very well for however many years. You can be upset, but at the same time, when there are people coming out and saying how embarrassing this channel is for like a fan base to be called, I would have like an internal battle with myself just because it's just like, God, I hate how we're doing, but like there are some of the players are watching this and like they're really like hating on it, like I feel like I should just be a little bit more positive for them because
that's a big argument that happens.
In today's world, social media is insane the way some players are attacked. Like Karius after the Liverpool Champions League final, like death threats, this, that, and then it's a whole can of worms that the fans don't understand that can affect these idolized these players.
Right.
So
no, absolutely. I think that's 100% on point with what the general struggle is between those two. But it's something that's so nuanced, and again, one of those things where you can't just kind of put a blanket statement over what a fix is or what the actual situation is. But
because it's still relatively new, it's still this whole social media thing is still kind of new to everything.
Absolutely. But okay, that's the end of it. 3 main topics, and to any new listener, obviously, this is not generally how long these main topics are, but we just felt that today, especially considering our actual main topic, would be potentially a little bit shorter. We wanted to kind of dive a little deeper into this, into these kind of relevant news topics for this week, and give a little more insight on that. But moving on to the main topic, we're going to be covering jersey numbers and kind of their relevance to the sport of soccer, both kind of on the field and culturally, more importantly, culturally.
So why this came about in my head, it's very selfish and a little whatever, but as a Manchester United fan, Marcus Rashford was just given the number 10 jersey for the number 10 squad number, jersey number, whatever you want to call it, for Manchester United. And it got me thinking of like, what is the importance of a squad number to a player's? What is the importance overall of squad numbers, right? Because for the longest time in the existence of soccer, there were no numbers. Yeah. It was just you had the colors of your shirt. You had 11 dudes. They played on each side, and for a total of 22 people, there was no real numbers. And it ended up becoming a headache for people who commentated on games of knowing who was doing what. So then they introduced numbers, but those numbers didn't stay with players. It used to be that like every game it was 1 through 11, and it was always 1 through 11, and it would just kind of, the players would change, but the shirts would kind of stay the same. Yep. But in today's modern game, every player is assigned a squad number. Their name is on the back of every jersey, and it's become this massive achievement for you to have a number between the numbers of 1 and 11. Yeah. So much so that all over the world, when Marcus Rashford got the number 10 jersey for Manchester United, people were like, it became such massive news, despite the fact that if you look at it on paper, it's such a simple thing. It was like, okay, so he changed his number from 19 to 10. Great. That's, a lot of people would just look at it as like whatever. But squad numbers in soccer are sacred. It's one of those things that like, we were talking about it in the MLS show that we do every week. Shameless plug. We have an MLS show that comes out every Monday. We recap the happenings of the MLS every Monday. So check that out on YouTube. But anyway, we talked about it last week, how certain players have numbers that are like 99 or whatever it is, and we hate that, right? Yeah. But that's because it's like a sacred thing for you. You want to have a squad number between 1 and 11 because those are the most popular numbers. Those are the ones that have been known throughout history, I guess, as the more soccer
Yeah.
numbers. And I kind of just wanted to like ask you guys a question, like, should it matter so much that a player wears number 7 or number 29? Like, does it really make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm one of those guys where it's like a religious thing almost. The numbers and what they signify. I mean, back in the day, going back a little bit in history, like you're right, these numbers, players actually fought for them because that meant that they were in the starting squad. Like if I got a number 1 through 11, I'm on the field, I'm getting to play, and this is in a time when there were no substitutions. So getting that 11-man, one of those 11 numbers meant, hey, I'm selected to play. I'm going to be playing. I'm out there on the pitch. So over the years, obviously that's transitioned just with the way that the sport works. But it's funny because it still holds so much of that meaning, right? The number 1, which is generally the keeper, the way that the numbering worked was 1 being the keeper, defensive line gets then the next series of numbers, midfielders, forwards, etc. But these numbers have come to mean things where it's super weird to see a goalie wear a number other than 1, right? So I personally think that no, because it's just a number, but yes, because this number does end up, it has a meaning in the sport. It's not like any other sport where kind of numbers are solidified by maybe a great player that played in it. Now I'm thinking like basketball and the number 23. For the sport of soccer, it has a deeper meaning than just necessarily just one single player. It actually has a meaning on your role in the squad.
Quick goalie number for you. 1974 and 1978 World Cups, Netherlands. The goalie had number 8 because they did alphabetical number distribution.
That would hurt me to look at.
And that's why they didn't win the World Cup in those years.
But me as less of a religious guy in terms of numbering, I think a number is a fucking number, and you can wear whatever one assigns you, and be lucky if you start, unlucky if you don't. And although I will say that the important numbers that come to mind are probably cool for every kid who grows up playing maybe in the more competitive soccer universe, and maybe even like as Rashford just got that number 10, like that's, to him, I'm sure it means a lot. Yeah. But for me, I don't care what number I get. Yeah. As long as I'm out on that field, doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, and I like your perspective, Brendan, because between Louis and I, it's a very kind of not Americanized perspective on sports, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I'm here for you guys.
It gives us that, and that's something that I wanted to talk about is just like general American culture when you're talking in terms of sports and sports numbering. It's really just, again, that player basis. Like one player can make a number cool for a certain generation, but it doesn't hold that same, other than I think Michael Jordan. There might be a couple other players in other sports there that holds that relevance throughout multiple generations for a number, which is super different than the sport of soccer and how we see numbers.
Well, because the numbers in soccer, like you said, it's a symbol of status. Yeah. It's not just like, here you go, here's your number. It's a symbol of status because this is funny because another Manchester United relevant topic here. Anthony Martial, when he came to Manchester United, wore number 9. Yeah. Right? Zlatan Ibrahimovic signs for Manchester United. The club looked at him and were like, hey, I know we just gave you number 9, and this was, what your whole team was basing your entire marketing on. But what if we didn't give you number 9 and we gave Ibrahimovic number 9 and you can have number 11? Yeah. And then he's like, he was upset about it. His team was upset about it because they had planned their whole marketing around the fact that Anthony Martial was now number 9. Like all his social media had it, everything like that. And on top of it, it was just a symbol, a status symbol where like it's either a young and promising guy or your best player. And I think that from a marketing standpoint, it's a huge thing because in the world of soccer, if you have the number 7 or if you have number 10, these are numbers that like it shows you are one of the best players on the team. We can market you that way, even if it's just a number based on like, think about it this way. If at Manchester United, anybody who wears the number 7 jersey, there's this immense pressure on anybody at Manchester United who wears number 7. Likewise, the next person to wear number 10 for Barcelona after Messi, imagine that guy's life. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like his mentality of it is going to be like, wow, I have to somehow wear the same jersey that one of the best players or the best player in this club's history has ever worn. two of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to have to wear number 10 after Ronaldinho and Messi have worn it for Barcelona. Like, that, you could tell me it's just a number, but now imagine you, right? You played in Barcelona, and Brendan, I'm pointing to him. Sorry, listeners. Imagine you playing at Barcelona, and they're like, hey, man, Messi just retired. And prior to that, Ronaldinho used to wear number 10, and he retired. Here's the number 10 jersey. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of one of those things that you really kind of have to wrap your head around, because I wish it were just a number, but with every generation, these players add another level on top of that number, right? And at Manchester United, you had, George Best has worn number 7, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, like Eric Cantona, players that like have like massive, massive history with the club. It just adds so much weight to that number that it's like, okay, it's just a silly squad number, but it could be the make or break for a player's marketing campaign. It could be their status symbol across the world. But it's just very funny how that exists in the mind of a consumer.
Well, that just separates the men's from the boys.
A lot of the times, and it's funny how the kind of the culture behind numbers has evolved in different parts of the world, and seeing how the number 10 universally is pretty much means like you're the playmaker, you're the guy, you're the guy on a club. Well, obviously there are kind of situations where that isn't the case, but in most cases, number 10, everyone in the world understands that you're the guy. Everything goes through you. Another number 9, I think, is the one that guy is the striker, the goal scorer. He is the guy that's going to be providing goals for the team. But I kind of wanted to just quickly go through just a kind of conventional, more universal numbering system and how it works in terms of where positioning. So I'm going to read it down from goalkeeper up to striker. So 1 being goalkeeper, 2 being right back, 3 being the left back, 4, 5 being center backs, 6 and 8 being kind of the midfielder options there, 7 being the left wing.
Right wing.
7 being the right wing, yes, sorry. 8 already mentioned, 10 being the kind of midfielder, but more attacking midfielder than both 8 and 6. 9 being the striker, and
And there you have it. Culture FC giving you good how do you do this week. What do you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Give me some comments. Give me some feedback. We'll see you next episode.